Pull up a chair and gather round. It's Behind the Headlines of History, a show that explores intriguing news stories of the past, brought to you by Ancestry and newspapers.com. I have a story about a robbery, and I have to tell you, it is nuts.
Ooh.
Now, it comes from the Hampshire Advertiser, and it's the 5th of September, 1877. And the headline is Stealing Nuts.
Okay, I can see where this is going, Brad. It's
Now,
not going to take a genius to figure this one out.
I am going to get you from stealing nuts to Downton Abbey.
What?
So I'm going to read you the article because it's quite small. Charles Parker and Albert Groombridge, love that name, each 11 years of age, were charged with stealing a quantity of filberts. Do you know what a filbert is?
No idea.
It's a hazelnut. Who knew?
Wow.
Yeah. Now, Mrs. Mays, and I don't know who Mrs. Mays is, but she stated that she had lost quite 12 pounds of nuts. Now, that's 5 kilos in today's money of nuts.
That is a heck of a lot of hazelnuts.
Now, Police Constable Sharp, at 11:45, whilst on duty in Portswood Road, he saw the two boys cross a field, climb a fence, and commence to pick up the nuts. They did other damage. Now, they were sent to jail for 3 days. I kind of think it's a little excessive for just nicking some nuts, but there you go. That was what happened. I wanted to know what came next. Who were these people? So I started having a bit of a look around, and I loved the Albert Groomsbridge because it was an interesting name.
Yeah.
And it looks like him and a mate were just up for a lark, wanted to get some hazelnuts. I don't think it was for personal consumption. I love hazelnuts, but I'm not sure I could crack my way through 5 kilos.
Yeah, okay.
So they weren't career criminals. Mm-hmm. They saw an opportunity to nick something, and so they nicked it.
Yeah.
And it was almost like a supplemental income. I kind of feel like they probably grew up in that kind of environment where, they saw the opportunity, and they'd probably done it multiple times, and they just got caught this time.
Okay.
When I had a bit of a dig around, I wanted to find out, okay, well, what happened next to Albert? And he had 4 children, 3 girls and a boy. And it was one of those girls, Edith, and she went on and she actually had a job as a servant.
Right.
At Highclere.
Wow.
Which,
I love the way you've done this.
right? Highclere is, of course, where they filmed Downton Abbey. Now, she was there for 14 years as something called an undermaid. And she left when she got married.
Which was standard practice.
Yeah. And so, this just shows you, with a newspaper, you can go from this tiny little article about somebody who's in your family and get to something that's very relevant, very culturally relevant. Now, how did I find that connection? The first thing I do is I have a look to see, okay, well, great name, Albert Groombridge. There's not going to be a lot of them. There's always more than one, but there's going to be 20.
And I think that's key. A lot of the time we talk about the names. Some of them are quite unusual, but we know that if your surname is something like Smith, it is harder, isn't it, to trace your ancestors if your surname is a very popular surname.
Oh, look, it's becoming increasingly easier to find people simply because the volume of records that's available has gone up. And because we're getting better at pinpointing records, so we're getting records from particular places. And so the newspapers we're getting more local newspapers. And so you can narrow down your search for your ancestors. But what I did, so I put his name in, the census record popped up, so I was able to tell straight away what his occupation was and where he was living. Of course, it was the 1911 census that I found. And the great thing about that is it gives, how long they've been married, so you can find straight to a marriage record then, and how many children they had. And so I was able to go, okay, all right, I've got the number of kids. On the 1911, there was a kid missing.
Right, okay.
But he did have 4 kids, so I was able to jump out and then try and find it. And of course, one of the wonderful gifts is somebody else had done the research. Somebody else had put up a family tree.
Yeah.
And I was able to go from that to other records to confirm the stuff that was in the tree. And that's what led me to Downton Abbey. This story I thought was just going to be a small story. And I just thought it was really interesting that there were 2, young blokes kicking about, pinching a bunch of nuts. But it ended up, taking us to Highclere. Right? And again, this is just the joy of newspapers. Something so small can lead to something so big. Interested in more stories from the past? Give the gift of Ancestry this holiday season and let your loved ones open a world of discovery.